Witness says it was a state policy to torture suspects of treason cases. Gambia Armed Forces promotes junior officials to various ranks. And the 2021 elections bill moved for second reading. This and more coming on Gambia 24. Good evening, you're watching Gambia 24 News with me, Mariama Cham, and thanks for joining us. A leading private legal practitioner, Nene MC Cham, says the executive tortures suspects of treason-related cases while under custody at the National Intelligence Agency. Counsel Cham made the revelations in her testimony before the Truth Commission on Tuesday. According to her, cases in which the executive arm of government has an interest or a treason-related cases, her clients will allegedly be brutally tortured. Khadija Seka files in this report.
Reports from Amnesty International appear to state that confessions from suspects have been extracted through torture, raising concerns about the authenticity of the evidence presented before the court. An unsuccessful coup in 2006 led by the Chief of Defense Staff, Ndur Cham, to overthrow Yahya Jammeh's government has been cited frequently as an example for cases in which the perpetrators alleged that they were severely tortured in NIA custody. Counsel Nene MC Cham said the people charged with treason are frequently tortured.
Sure, from first hand from my clients.
And
it is my belief, because that is what I saw and lived. And that is my belief, is that it was a state. And a policy, yeah, why not? Because it happened routinely in all of these cases. So.
She also cited the case of the arrested UDP protesters who were calling for electoral reforms on April 14, 2016 as a reference. Nene Cham said the three women arrested were not showing up in court despite being charged. She added that it was evident that they were suffering in custody when eventually brought in court.
Their situation was even worse.
Tell
us about it.
In fact, it took a few adjournments for them to produce them in court after the case had come to court.
The
men were there, but the three women were not in court for about 2 to 3 adjournments. Yes, and their names were on the charge sheets. And when they eventually were brought to court, you can visibly see the pain that they were all.
That
was Fatoumata Jawara, Fatou Kamara, and Nogo Njai.
Gambia's former president ruled the country for 22 years with the help of 2 military institutions, the NIA and the Junglers, a paramilitary hit squad. The NIA has been reportedly responsible for the arbitrary arrest and detention of countless people, including journalists, civil servants, students, and LGBT people. Those detained for political reasons, including those perceived to support the opposition, who criticized the president or who highlighted the current administration's policy failure. And those implicated in coup attempts are often subjected to torture or other ill treatment frequently carried out by the junglers. Khadija Seka, iAfrica News.
A legal practitioner witness says it was a state policy to torture suspects of treason cases. Now the Gambia Armed Forces have promoted officials posted at the Army's headquarters in Banjul to various ranks, including Lance Corporal, Corporal, and Sergeant. The 39 young soldiers are said to have been promoted based on their hard work, the dedication of their services to the armed forces and the nation in general. We have more in this report. Contentment is built behind the face masks as they march forward to take their promotional ranks in the form of decoration by senior officials of the armed forces. In the past, promotions in the Gambian armed forces were not based on merit, but on subjective considerations that favored some sections of the army while setting out many deserving ones. Mohamed Ocham, Deputy Chief of Defense Staff of the Gambia Armed Forces, says promotion in the army is based on the dedication and loyalty of the officers. Deputy CDS Cham also explained the assessment criteria that prompted their promotions.
Promotion in the Gambia Armed Forces is a merit-based achievement, meaning that you are assessed, you are observed, and then over the period, you are assessed to see whether you deserve to be elevated or not. As they say, your competence is assessed, your loyalty and dedication to duty, all culminating in the board sitting to recommend your promotions. This is so because we want to build a professional armed forces. And the only way you can build a professional armed forces is to reward merit and dedication.
Deputy CDS adds that the armed forces is being built on a civilian-friendly system that will respect the rights and values of Gambians.
We are in the process of building a people-friendly armed forces, an armed forces that respects the democratic norms of the society, respects the human rights of the country, and makes sure that the mandate of the armed forces is also understood. The trainings and the tools that are given to the armed forces are also adequate to meet the tasks that have been set for the armed forces. So I encourage you to continue to improve yourselves individually and collectively so that you will be able to perform the respective roles that you are currently assigned.
Meanwhile, Sergeant Joseph Mendy, one of the promotees, expressed delight and gratitude to the command for their promotion.
To sum it all, it signifies that command has noticed your long years of hard work, dedication, and selfless sacrifice, and it has rewarded you for it. To my fellow promotees, there is always a sense of privilege being entrusted with a higher rank, and we should be all prepared for new responsibilities.
11 private soldiers were promoted to Lance Corporal, 15 from Lance Corporal to Corporal, and 13 from Corporal to Sergeant. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Mariama Cham. Junior officers at the Armed Forces headquarters promoted to various ranks. Now the Elections Bill 2021 on Monday has been moved to the second reading stage for lawmakers to debate on the merits and principles of the bill. The bill, if passed by the National Assembly, will repeal the Elections Act and enact a new act in line with the best practices to the principles of free and fair elections in the Gambia, according to the Justice Minister. Laisisa reports.
For the past few years, Gambia opposition politicians and citizens have been demanding for electoral and constitutional reforms. This includes the changing of current voting process to ballot papers, non-involvement of civil servants in the electoral process, as well as the inclusion of diaspora in the voting process. However, with the presence of new elections bill, these areas are expected to be addressed according to the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice.
The bill seeks to repeal the Elections Act, Cap 301, and to enact a new Elections Act in line with the best practices to achieve the cardinal principles of free and fair elections in the Gambia. This bill has taken cognizance of the fact that electoral laws conformed or must conform to the need and aspirations of the electorates in a true democratic society for the full participation of all eligible citizens through casting of votes. Apart from the above, the bill seeks to introduce a detailed procedure and analysis in the publication of final results by the chairman of the Independent Electoral Commission after the conduct of a particular election or referendum and during the declaration of results. The criteria for the analysis of the results are now provided for in the bill.
As the bill is subjected for debate on its merit and principles, the National Assembly member for Jaro West, Kajali Fofana, says the bill should have been presented to Parliament earlier than this because Gambians await this bill for so long.
Because this is a bill that was long awaited. Since the changes, all Gambians are waiting for this bill. Why so late? What are the reasons? And what actually the bill is seeking is the repeal of the Election Act. That is the first thing that the bill is looking for. And again, it's looking for a new electoral act, according to the objects and the reasons. And that is why Gambians need this bill long time ago.
The Honorable Member for Banjul North, Usman Silla, says the 2021 elections bill before the Assembly did not capture some of the areas that needs to be reformed.
Well, I was expecting that this bill also was going to come with fundamental changes in the sense that it is a little bit different from what is existing. And as we all agree that the verdict of the majority should carry the day, and this can only be if the majority's decision stands. And this takes us to the principle of majority 50+1. So these are some of the fundamental things I've seen missing. That this bill, although there is no constitution that talks about the majority principle, but nothing stops laws anticipating what is coming in the future. So I believe this is one of the key fundamental aspect that is missing. There is nothing that talks about a situation where we have to go for a second round of voting. I believe this bill should capture it.
In May 2015, Gambia opposition parties tabled constitutional and electoral reforms, which includes a presidential term limit, demarcation of new constituencies, and participation of civil society in selecting electoral commissioners. Since the democratic change of government in 2017, citizens and politicians have been yearning for electoral reforms and the laws governing elections, as the current electoral laws were drawn to favor the incumbent. The choice of electoral reforms is important in the decision of every democratic country. However, the wishes and aspirations of Gambians is expected to be fulfilled in the new bill if passed by the Parliament. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Daisy.
That report by Ndai on the elections bill will take us to a quick break, and we'll be right back with the rest of the news. Stay tuned.
Wakawel mu campagne leti Africa tiliji ka fonninkel tanka mantoro la aninke semmenti yandi pour ila sama kamala foybe banko le kan waram banko e bantala wakawel nim fonninkel ani jama mol le ka doku ke ka kibaro ni yamaro dada e ka min fintindi television kono rajibungol to online platform ani sate cinema alto jamala nyaton kaya koto wakawel ka molu londi taransila koyringola tamo kata bantala bankol kan anin bunda kotengol ning isula ta foka karan non doku nyino anin julaya Gambia banko kan woto fo ika haji jara bundalu le nyini nga foko ite mo moleti min lafita londe lukaringola IT warang management fo yalo nako karan dinkiral be Gambia banko kan ne minul boko Suna Institute of Science and Technology, Kamsi Technology Inside Training Center and in Sibek College daming ika information and management karandi. Ise ku jamalon no management ani information technology la fannato niye munafan computer la ani jamani la banjoran kotangol. tumando bato ika haji jara bundal le nyini façon design waran karalo bundato karandinkiral be Gambia banko kanne minul buko S&S Institute of Creative Design ye bundal soto funding keliye minu mo façon designalti anin karallal minul nene ma karandot waran ka certificate o soto nabota IT management façon design anin karalo waka walla website toto ibe kibar senengo soto la bundal minul be caring agriculture plumbing construction anin métier kotangol to ni mu plombaleti mi hamo soto ka plumbing jorangol doku kordal kono warang imu masongoleti mi hamo soto bum plano anin bullo kuwolto karandinkiral be Gambia banko kanne minul buko inside training center dameng ise demano foy bula ila lafina kuwol no kan hani sayam bunda kotongol agriculture la fannato Gambia college ka karandiro kele mi se demano fo ifana yebulo dundi agriculture kono wakawel.info/Gambia fanan katandiro kele bunda kotongolula moliye mini ya hamo soto ka dun ketrin doku kono kafumo jama kotongolula minuli munafang karangola kabo karandinkiralto minul buko Mari Bennett Skills Training Center nyin kamala kabula ila la finna kuwol nokan anin kallo molla sulol la domor kendo anin min fengolu kabo bendulalto anin hotelol bulu ni sulata yamaro la ila karango bandinkola nyin karambungol minul wato wati ibe loring ila karandingol la nyato tala betenten na leke yamar wokono ibe doko nyini la nyamen ani ni bitala interview dula molu minu ka bunda kotongol nyini bantala bankol kan anin ka tamasila koyringota wakawel be kibar senengol dilela e nyanta bulala taransila koyringol minul nokan ni tambita ni wakawel.info/Gambia la ibe kibar senengo soto la passport nyini nyasilol fankanta kaito ni bita la visa nyinola wokono travel health insurance plane ticket o sanya ise jiano hotelol minto bank statement anin ku kotengol wakawel.info/Gambia ibe kibar senengo fanan soto la ikata banko minna visa nyini fo jorolom anin jelulom ibe telephone number website ol anin address ol fanan dilal lale foyto be kafuru molle kono mini ya mira ko ni manta bakwe ite barakalla no buray imuna fang wakawel.info/Gambia ise kuko yo soto inyanta bulala taransila koyringol minul no kan ni lafita katama kata bantala bankol kan warang isulata de marola karango doku soto ani julaya Gambia banko
Section 120 to 148 of the 1997 Constitution of the Gambia provides the structure.
Welcome back and still with the news. Steve Mari Tambedu, a private legal practitioner and former president of the Gambia Bar Association, on Monday tells the Truth Commission that the executive details judicial orders, but it refused to implement the orders as required. The former bar president says former President Yahya Jammeh never respected the decisions of the court. Falmata Kasim tells us more.
Section 120 to 148 of the 1997 Constitution of the Gambia provides the structure, composition, and jurisdiction of the court in the Gambia. Judicial power is vested in the court accordingly. The courts are not subjected to the control of any person or authority outside the judiciary. Sheriff Mari Tambedu, a private legal practitioner and a former president of the Gambia Bar Association, says Jammeh had enablers in the judiciary and justice department that helped him manipulate the justice system.
There were many examples of that where court orders and judicial decisions were not respected. Personally, I remember two cases. I represented Mr. Omar Ndao, former managing director of GAMBIA.
waaw loolu day mën naa cee joxe ay misaal yu bëri yoo xam ne nii àtte bi dana dogal loo xam ne nii daal duñ ko mujjee nangu mën naa cee fàttaliku sax ay ñaar benn nag bokk na ci di layoo bu mel ni ki bu Mr. Omar Ndao.
He would be granted bail by the court only for him to be rearrested outside the courthouse.
dañ ko jox bail di court bi waaye buy génn rek ci biti rek ñu dal di ko jàppaat.
Now another example is Mr. Abdoulaye Diop, former managing director of NAWEC.
beneen bi mooy Mr. Abdoulaye Diop nga xam ne moo nekkoon borom buntu liggéeykaay bi saytuwaale courant ak ndox si réew mi di nawek.
I would secure his release on bail by the court only for him to be rearrested.
danaa de fexe nag ba nga xam ne ni court bi bail nañ ko waaye nag buy génn rek ñu jàpp ko.
This happened 2 or 3 times.
lii nag am na ñaar ba ñetti yoon.
When I complained to the magistrate, the police said they did not have him, they did not arrest him.
He says courts gives bail under difficult condition which cannot be easily met. He adds that sometimes the courts will refuse bail because the president has shown interest in the case and judges feels intimidated.
He will preempt these cases. He will come to TV, national television, and talk about these cases and say he will deal with these people, or people will see how he's going to deal with those people. You and I know that if a court gives bail with difficult conditions, it's tantamount to no bail. It's like they have not given bail at all.
maa yow yëpp xam nañ ne bu fekkee ne court bi dal dinañu joxe bail teg ko ci ay sarta yoo xam ne nii borooma mën koo jot wala lu jafe la boobaa mu ngi mel ni rek bail amut.
In fact, as president of the bar, I took it upon myself to visit some of the judges and magistrates in chambers to explain to them that to give them the value of the dalasi to the dollar as compared to the naira because they would come and talk about millions of dollars. And I said, our money is not as useless as you think it is. So when you say $1 million, that's a lot of money here. I had to see them in private to try to educate them on this so that perhaps this would help in the reduction of bail conditions.
The appointment of judges in a transparent manner is important to the judicial independence. Section 138 of the Constitution mandates the President to appoint the Chief of Justice after consultation with the Judicial Service Commission. Generally, the President appoints senior court judges on the recommendation of the GSC, which is a weak provision as the President is not bound by the GSC's view. For iAfrica News, I am Fatoumata Kasim.
Former president of the Gambia Bar Association says Jammeh never respects the decision of the courts. Well, viewers, that was all we have for you in today's edition of Gambia 24. Join us for more news on iAfrica.tv. I am your presenter, Mariama Cham. Thanks for watching and have a good night.
The pride we take in our brand